Hi there, this is John from McClungmusic.com again, and this is video number 4 in my series on how to play music by ear. Okay, so in the first 3 videos we've looked at scales, we've learned how to play melodies by ear, and then the last one we learned how to form chords, when they're made up of pancakes, if you want to call them that. Okay, so now that we've learned how to form chords, today we're going to talk about how you pick which chord to use, how you choose between your different chords. So if you're still in C major and you're just staying with the white keys, which is what we're going to do for the beginning, you've got 7 different chords to choose from, and we give them numbers, starting with tonic or home. That's 1. So if you form a chord on that note, that's a 1. If you go to the second note, form a chord, that's 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's what we're going to call them. You can say, C, D, E, F, and so on, but it's helpful if you think about them in terms of numbers, because then when you go to different keys, the note names will change, but the numbers will be the same. So 5 chord in the key of G works the same way that a 5 chord in the key of C does, even though in the first case it's a D, in the second case it's a G. So it's a little less confusing if you think about them in terms of their number within the scale, because those are universal principles you can use. Okay, so how do you know which chord to use? Well, that's a really good question. There's a couple different tricks you can use instead of just guessing. And one trick is to pick a chord that has a note in common with the melody note. So let's try Amazing Grace again. So if you're going to pick a chord, say right here, well, that's a C. So we could pick a chord that has a C in it. So C major, obviously, or A minor has a C in it, or F major has a C in it. So you could try all of those. And some of those work better than others. In the beginning, on a hymn like this, when in doubt, use the 1 chord. Remember when we talked about scales, we talked about the home note, tonic, is by far the most important note. Well, it's also the most important chord. And what you're going to discover is that the chords, the same way that different notes are important in a scale, different chords are important and of different importance. So the most important by far is 1. Songs often end on 1, and they almost entirely songs often start on 1, and they almost entirely end on 1, almost always. So when in doubt, that's a pretty good guess. So in this case, okay, so the 1 chord is by far the most important. The second chord you want to learn is 5. So in the key of C, if you start on 1, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's our 5, and then you build your pancakes on top of 5, and that's your 5 chord. Now with 1 and 5, you can play an amazing number of songs. Let me just give you an example here. So if you're going to play the Starspangled Banner, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You might want to play it in a fancy sort of way, like you can do it that way. But in a pinch, you can also play it this way. Just 2 chords. I mean, really, just almost the entire song you can play too. And of course, it repeats from there. So I mean, you can get by on just 1 and 5 to an amazing degree. So this really shows you what I'm saying, which is 1 chords and 5 chords are, when in doubt, If you try one of those two chords, you'll be off in a surprising amount of the time. You'll discover that. So you got your 1 chord and you got your 5 chord. The next most common chord is the 4 chord. If you start with C, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you form your pancakes on top of that. That's your 4 chord. And this is the 4 chord is an interesting animal. It does a couple different things. One is it prepares the 5 chord. So a lot of times you'll have a cadence, which is like, you'll see that pattern a lot, or you'll see the 4 or 5 a lot. So if you want to go back to Amazing Grace, and here, you could play a 1 chord, but notice the C is also in the 4 chord. And that's the other thing that the 4 chord will do. A lot of times it's used in places where you could use, 1 chord, but it gives, sort of takes you away a little bit. And then so on. So when you're practicing playing by ear, really think about the order I've given you these chords in, because 1 chord is so much more common than all the other ones, and then the 5 chord, and then the 4 chord. Those are really the 3 chords that you can play just about anything with in a pinch. Now you might not, if you're thinking about a song that a band plays and you want to play it the same way, then they might not use those chords. But if you're just thinking about the melody itself, you probably could play that melody with those 3 chords. And that's true for probably most of the melodies you're going to run across. So of those 7 different chords that I talked about, we've talked about 3 of them so far. 1, 5, and 4. And what we're going to discover in the next video is that the other 4 chords are really just fancier versions of those first 3 chords. That you can use the first 3 chords, but the other ones just sort of dress them up. So, like I said, you could stop here and actually play a tremendous amount of songs if you want. If not, I will see you at the next video. Click here. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you there.